In the distance, the Jerusalem temple is visible. A priest walks toward it, passing rows of sacrificial animals and goats lined up in the temple courtyard. Merchants have set up stalls, shouting to sell animals to the bustling crowd. In the middle of the noisy crowd, the priest steps into the temple. In the hall beside the temple, the priests had gathered, sitting in a tense meeting. At the center is Caiaphas, the head priest, radiating authority. All eyes were on him, waiting to hear what he would say. Caiaphas stands abruptly, his voice sharp with anger. "Who is this Jesus? Where did he come from?" One of the priests replied, "He's from Nazareth, the son of a carpenter. He was working as a carpenter until recently." Caiaphas glares, his frustration spilling over. A carpenter turned preacher, what's next? "We, the preachers, will have to take up carpentry." Another priest stood up, addressing Caiaphas. "More people are following him now than coming to the temple. If this continues, we'll lose everything. Our respect, our authority." A third priest added, "His preaching skills have made him a leader of crowds. Hundreds gather to hear him today. Tomorrow, there will be thousands. Thousands will grow to tens of thousands, and tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands. He's growing unstoppable." Caiaphas shot him a sharp look and growled. If that happens, he could challenge the government if he wanted to. The priests exchange nervous glances. Caiaphas continues, his voice low but commanding. "After the king, we religious leaders hold the power. Right now, I am next to Pontius Pilate. But if we let Jesus continue, how long before he takes my place?" An elderly priest stood up after hearing Caiaphas' speech and said, "O high priest, he teaches people to turn away from their sins. How can we call teaching such things considered crime?" Caiaphas looked at him and replied, "You're right, it's not a crime. But he has come to compete with us. Today, the number of people coming to the temple has decreased. Therefore, the income of the temple has dropped, and that means less income for us. From now on, the influence we have over people will fade. The respect people have for us will shrink. If this continues, the comfortable life we've built will vanish. Do you agree with this?" The old priest lowered his head and sat back down. A priest stood up suddenly and said, "We can't just leave him like this. We have to do something." Caiaphas said, "We can't touch him unless he commits a crime. We need to make him commit one." He calmed down a bit and said cunningly, "Some of you follow him. Go to the places where he goes and teaches and watch closely. Listen carefully for anything that could be seen as speaking against the government or our beliefs. If you hear it, arrest him immediately with witnesses." One of the priests hesitated. "But what if he doesn't say anything wrong?" Seeing him, Caiaphas said, "If he doesn't, then make him slip. Trick him. Ask him the kind of questions that force him to speak against the government or our beliefs. We just need one small spark. Once we find that, we can fan the flames, turn it into a fire, and destroy him completely." The room fell silent as satisfaction spread across their faces. A group of women stands by the well outside town. One of them is pumping water, while Philomena, holding a jug, talks and laughs with them. As she does, soldiers ride by on horseback. Philomena laughs at Jonas riding along with soldiers. One of the women notices and asks, "Is that your brother Jonas?" Philomena nods, "Yes." Another woman laughs and says, "He's a handsome man. I think she's had a crush on him for a while. You should get her married to him." The woman shyly looks away. Soldiers march into the village through a mountain pass. The villagers gather in front of a house of death. Barabbas and several young men are among the crowd. Suddenly, the soldiers surround the house. When Jonas spots Barabbas in the crowd, he turns his horse toward him and rides over. Barabbas rises from the crowd and walks toward Jonas, asking, "Why are you here?" Jonas replies, "We received information that you were trying to bury the body. We're here to stop it." Barabbas asks, "Do you think what you're doing is right?" Jonas answers, "Justice and injustice don't matter to soldiers like us. Our duty is to follow orders." We've been ordered to kill at least 10 people if the body is buried. Don't sacrifice innocent lives." After a moment of thought, Barabbas says, "Well, we see this struggle differently." He walks over to his fellow youths and says something to them. Then the body is carried away, surrounded by soldiers.